Okay. Put my phone on
Start
vibrate.
Okay. So it is now, this is our second interview, and it's now Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, and it is a little bit after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And here in California, in Ventura County, it is a beautiful, sunshiny, blustery day. And I'm here with almost all of the Lemos sisters. I have Mary Jerez up there in the top left-hand corner, and then there's me in the middle, and Clarisa Beck up on the right-hand top side, and Liz Dickenson on the bottom left, Frances Hale in the center bottom, and Nora Heisch is joining us today. Did I say that right, Nora? Is it Heisch?
Yes.
Hi, welcome.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And I sent you the consent form, and because we're in a shelter in place here, I asked you to email me consent, and you did. I received that, so thank you. During our last interview, we talked a little bit about how your family came to live in Simí Valley and some of your childhood memories. And Frances, I think you wanted to revisit some of that before we move forward.
Yeah, I just, Mrs. Sjogren came to mind. She was a Girl Scout and Brownie leader. And it was really a fond memory. She'd be sitting there leading the meeting, and she'd go, she'd pull out her cigarette. She goes, "Mind if I smoke?" She was such a dear woman. And then also, just different, you know, we talked a little bit about any racism in school that we might have experienced. I
would like to hold the racism part until later. I definitely want to talk about stuff.
Yeah, because there isn't much to say. But.
Yeah, but I wanted to actually start today by asking you guys about, we talked about your memories of Simí growing up, but I wanted to ask you about how this community has changed over your lifetime.
Oh, tremendously, because it was agricultural, and then like I mentioned before, we watched the different tract homes come up through the years, and I've moved away, so I've been in Nevada for 3 years now, and even coming back, it's like, when did this happen? You know, when did they make houses and stuff? Just in the past 3 years. So, but you know, Simí seemed like going to Santa Susana seemed really far, and then next thing you know, it felt like the San Fernando Valley. Not that we went out there very often, but that to me was my experience. Just tracts coming, you know, being built everywhere, and every spot and every place that we roamed around and picked the walnuts, like we said last time, that we were picking walnuts at different orchards and stuff. And I think we did radishes and onions one summer too, over closer to and
not me.
LA Avenue. You didn't do the radishes and the onions?
No.
With the shanga?
No, I didn't ever work with shanga.
What is shanga?
No, it's just
person.
It's the nickname we gave to a lady who was a neighbor, but she was a neighbor who lived right across the street from Mrs. Montgomery. There were a few families who moved into that house, and that house, by the way, I wanted to ask Mary a question about it, but a few families who lived there for just a few years at a time, right across the street from Mrs. Montgomery's house. And we nicknamed that woman Shanga because she couldn't pronounce it. Shanga? Was that it?
She called the kids.
Yeah. Shangos.
Oh, she called the kids Changos?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Chango is that a monkey?
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But she was Hispanic.
She was Hispanic, but she was a coconut.
Yeah. So were we, though. Yeah.
What about you, Nora?
What about me?
How did Simí Valley change during your lifetime?
Oh my goodness.
Hey there, I see you.
Wow.
Yeah, we do see
Oh
you.
yes,
There you are.
I pushed up. I pushed up, and there was this thing. The audio, the video was off. Wow, to me it's changed so much. To me it turned into a bustling city. It did.
What was
you
it like
know,
for you when you were little?
Gosh, country. Like being out in the country. And so like when we would go into when we would visit Moore Park, it was like at High Street in Moore Park, it was like, oh, this is the city. And then Simi Valley, to me, began to develop like that. And I go, oh my gosh, we're turning into a city. Because remember, Moore Park had the theater on High Street and everything. So when we started, when Larwin Square was going up and all that, I thought, oh my God, it's turning into a bustling city. So
Yeah.
When Dad was growing up, he told me that when they would go out and, on a big night, it was going to Moore Park, going to High Street, going to the theater. That was like going.
Moore Park was the town.
Moore Park was the town. Simi was, the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember grocery shopping in Moore Park because they had the bigger market.
oh yes.
And then more people started driving down or up Erringer Road to get home to the development that was deep down in the orchard. Remember, Liz, you mentioned last week how you saw that development going up, and we did. But anyway, so we started having a little bit more traffic. And another thing that changed was just our privacy. I remember just, running around the orchards freely because Mr. Montgomery said, this orchard belongs to you and you can eat all the oranges off the trees you want. And because people started telling us, you kids get out of there. What are you playing in there for? Well, we live here, So it started we started feeling kind of pressed in.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mary, did you want to add anything?
Just how kind of just echoing what they said, things started, it was kind of exciting because we were it was getting a little bigger, but it was because before it was the orchards that we were playing in the orchards, and there were we were just free. There were the eucalyptus trees and everything. There was even a tree house there in one of the orchards.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember it was kind of like I used to fantasize a lot, like it looked like the forest of the fairy tales or something.
Yep.
And it was good to grow up in an environment like that because you could just sit under the trees and then just imagine Snow White with the 7 dwarves, and it was beautiful. It was really neat. And
a little irrigation. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then when it started developing, and like Liz was saying last week, the houses coming up, that was kind of exciting. But then we were losing that privacy that we had, and that enchantment that we all shared in that grew up.
Yeah, even the little irrigation ditches, when they would water the groves, became like I know that you dammed them up, Liz. I never allowed my friends to do that, but they were little rivers to us. We would imagine we were in, riding down the rapids or whatever. It was just such a beautiful life.
Yeah, it was.
I remember damming them up. Yeah, with my brothers.
Did it seem like the orchards disappeared really quickly?
Well, by 1969, 1968 is when they mowed them down, and we had to move out.
That was sad.
I mean, they knocked down our house. We moved out, and they set the house on fire immediately, and it burned in an hour. I mean, it burnt to the ground in an hour. The house that we lived.
We moved out, but we didn't move everything out of the house all at once. Okay. We had a certain amount of time before they were going to knock the whole thing over and burn it. But during that time, between the house on First Street where William Morris Chevrolet was, and where we were in Erringer. Sometimes we'd come back to the house in Erringer and load up a crate of stuff that we left in the garage or whatever, or in the kitchen, because we didn't move everything out right away. I remember coming to the house, and there was a man in our garage stealing tools and other things. He just scavenging around, and he looked like just a regular man. He had his car. He didn't look like he was poor. And I said, "Excuse me," and he goes, "Oh, hi, what are you doing here?" And I go, "This is my house." And you know, so I just felt like, wow, it's all being taken away, and now somebody's robbing, you know? It was weird.
You watched it burn?
So we did,
We went back. My dad took us down. I just remember being in the car and going back, and you could see them pulling up all the trees.
Oh, so heartbreaking.
And just piling them up and burning them, and it was tragic.
It was traumatic.
I cried. I remember crying over losing that house. I do.
I remember when it was all in a heap, all in a big pile. Yeah. Even the laundry line poles, everything, metal or wood, and there it was, and it went up and nothing flat. And I remember thinking, what a miracle that we never burned the house down.
Right.
It could have gone up like that.
Right.
there were so many accidents there. So, you know.
They set it on fire and it went up in an hour or like an hour and a half. Everything was just ash.
Oh, so traumatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was depressed for years about that.
Yeah.
Can you share any memories that you have about historically significant stuff that happened in Simí while you were living there? We talked a little bit about, I think it was Francis that mentioned something about cults in the hills, but you know, Corriganville, the access to you know, movie stuff, the Chumash Borough Flats, the Rocketdyne testing. Did you guys see the rocket testing over the hills? Anything like that you remember?
We just heard Rocketdyne.
Go ahead, Mary.
The Rocketdyne, they would do the testing about 2 or 3 times a day, and it would rumble. And we grew up with that, so we knew that they were doing testing up there. We didn't know how dangerous it was, just what they were testing. And we learned that years later, but we were used to it. We were in school or at home, and then it would rumble. And I think it would rumble. And then I think sometimes you could see a little flame.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
a little glow.
You could see the flame.
Over the top of the hills?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was right at the top of that hill where Rocketdyne is, and you'd see sometimes a flash like a big fire. Yeah.
Even during the daytime?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was sometimes it was really loud rumbling, just depended on how many rockets they were testing. But it was like a normal everyday part of life. It's like, wow, to not have it was just not see me.
Right. Was that the 1950s or the 1960s or both?
Yep, both. Even
both.
Even into the 70s.
In the 70s, we still had it.
You remember that too, Clarisa?
Oh yeah.
I worked up there for a few years out of high school, and so I got to see it firsthand. But what we didn't know, what we were unaware of, was that in 1959 was the nuclear reactor meltdown.
Right.
Yeah.
But my best friend, my first white friend, Kamala Hobley, who lived up North Erringer Road, way up North Erringer Road, the Hobley family, their dad worked at Rocketdyne, and many years later, he recounted that he had warned his superiors that the rods inside the reactor were starting to disintegrate. And he said, that's going to cause an accident. We're going to have a problem here. And they kept ignoring him. And finally it did happen. And he had to, with a crew of guys, suit up to go in there and to shut down the reactor. And he was the only one of his friends who did not get cancer at a young age and die.
Oh,
He did it through, he said, through blood chelation therapy. So he survived until his 80s. So.
I was just reading yesterday in the LA Times, there were a couple of articles written about that came out about a week afterwards. Did it take that long for you guys to know that that had happened, or were you notified by, was there like a public safety sort of a notification that went out, or was it
Well,
just
we were just kids, so it didn't really.
We didn't know anything.
You didn't know at the time at all?
Yeah, I didn't know at the time, and our parents never said. My dad never said anything about it.
No, probably because it was really played down.
Right.
And but years and years later it came out. I didn't hear about the nuclear reactor accident until my adult years. I was already married and had kids.
Right.
But the people who lived south of LA Avenue, especially toward the southeast, were the ones who really got it bad when it came to cases of cancer.
Yeah.
They also had the water run off from the hills there. We didn't have that. We had water that came from a reservoir from the northeast part of Erringer, so of where we live, that is, of Simí. So we didn't get, I think what we have in our family is a lot of thyroid problems, and I think it might be due to that. Yeah.
They said it's related to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of thyroid problems.
Do you remember any of that, Mary?
No, I don't remember. I also did not know about the nuclear reactor accident until I was married, and just reading. I think it wasn't too long ago, maybe about 10 years ago. I didn't realize that had happened, and because we were not. If it was in the newspapers, it was played down. I'm sure it was, and because we didn't know about this, and. We didn't.
Yeah.
Did about that.
Now, Francis talked last time a little bit about the Manson family, that whole 60s counterculture thing. Did any of that impact Simi Valley? Was any of that here, or that sort of in some places traveled through the 70s? Was that here?
Yeah.
Well, what I do remember about the Manson area, the Spawn Ranch area, when we were in high school after the whole thing happened, because it was Manson 69.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember in high school, like Halloween or, in the fall, you'd go and you'd park up there and you'd say it was, everybody would go to get spooked by going up to that area because it was still fresh. And people would say, oh, I found this and it belonged to Manson. And, it was, for me, it was a lot of fear. Just, it was just a scary place to go because, these people had lived up there and we didn't even know it.
Right.
Mary, what was that little cult that you had friends and they died in fire?
Fountain of
the Fountain of Life.
Fountain of the World. The Fountain of the World.
Fountain of the World. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened when I think that big axe or the fire happened when I was in the first or second grade, because I had friends who died. And
And a school teacher who died there too.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of them was a school teacher in Simi?
Yeah. Oh gosh, what was his name? He was one of my husband's teachers, but he died in a fire in the Knolls. Now maybe it was just his house, maybe that was a separate thing, but
this was that lived up there. And that was neat. They had interesting names, the girls that died. And
Sheila and Sheila.
Sheila and Keela. And they were barefoot.
Yeah. They didn't wear shoes. Yeah.
They didn't wear shoes.
They all had the same color. Go ahead.
They all had the what?
They all had the same color lunch pails. I remember they were blue. I think they would buy old lunch pails and then they would paint them blue. They didn't have any designs on them.
Aww. Well, we had cheap junk too.
And Liz was reminding me, talking about Santa Susana Pass, I didn't ask you guys when we were talking about teenager stuff, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, but was there like sort of an inspiration point around here? Was there a place where
The drive-in.
was it the drive-in? Nora, do you remember?
No, but
Yes,
I
sir.
always thought, because we used to have to go to the drive-in with my sister, so I would say the drive-in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had to have chaperones. If one of our little siblings had to accompany us, because my parents knew what that was. That
Right.
drive-in did attract that sort of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Clarisa?
Probably the same thing. The drive-in was still here when I was all the way through high school. Yeah, same place, the drive-in.
Yeah.
There were other places, like other hangouts and things for my age group. We used to hang out at a place called Elephant Rock. I don't know if you guys did either.
I was just gonna say Elephant Rock.
Elephant Rock was kind of the hangout.
And
their houses
Frontier
are now.
Park. Frontier
Frontier
Park,
Park, yeah.
the wash, so it was hidden away.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't ever hang out there, but
Elephant Rock
Yeah.
is in Sycamore Park?
yeah, yes. Right by Sycamore Park, and it looks like an elephant. And I think they saved the rock in that little housing complex. They built houses there.
Yeah, they did. In fact, we were just there a few months ago with our granddaughter, showing her the Elephant Rock.
Yeah.
And would you climb up in there, up into the rocks to hang out?
Yeah. And it's just kind of like we're so far away from everybody. Nobody could see you, but you're right there in a neighborhood.
Yeah, it just felt that way.
But it just felt far away.
Were there other places around town where you could go up to like see the lights as kids that you would climb up to?
Well, teenage years for me, the Elephant Rock, and then also up First Street where where's that hotel? What's the hotel at First Street? Like where the arena's at and that big hotel.
Yeah.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
So you could
right.
drive all the way up First Street, and then you'd be way off the beaten path, and you could look down into the city and see the lights, but they couldn't, bunch
Right,
of
they
trucks go up there in cars, and we would just hang out up there.
Mhm.
That was kind of a fun thing to do. Off-roading, whatever.
Did you want to say something, Nora?
No.
Okay.
No, she better not, or we'll tell.
Yeah.
We talked about childhood memories and we talked about Rocketdyne. One of the things that I remember very clearly, and I don't know if we touched base on it last time, was in 1961 during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And,
62.
62.
That was very
And we had drills where you had to, hide under your desk. And I didn't know what it was all about. I mean, it was like, and then one day they called us out into the playground and they divided us up into groups. And it was to get all these kids home if the bomb went off, if
we were bombed.
If we were bombed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, they were all bomb drills and stuff, but I didn't know what it was all about. I was in the second grade, I think. Yeah, second grade.
Wasn't it like drop and duck or duck and drop or something like that?
Yeah.
And go under the desk and under our chairs. And then one day, like I said, we all lined up in the playgrounds. They divided us up into groups and we had to walk home from school, like in the middle of the day. And it's like, okay, this is real. This is real. And we practiced walking home. And we lived 2.5 miles from the...
Wasn't it Lincoln School?
Lincoln School.
Lincoln Elementary.
2.5 miles from where we lived.
Yep.
And, there we go, a bunch of little kids. And then the teachers only walked us up to a certain point, and then I think they walked us to Foodland Market, and then we were on our own.
Yeah, it was weird.
And I remember thinking, what's going on? Who's going to bomb us, But
in the
all
valley,
these kids walking in the streets of Simí trying to get home because of the bomb thing.
Was it the Cuban Missile Crisis, or was it just because of the Cold War and Nikita Khrushchev was threatening?
Well, it was during that whole time.
Yeah, I think it was first when we did a lot of drills, and then they told us that we were going to be walking home at one point, and that was I think that was a year before, and then came the missile crisis in '62. I think it was in '62.
Yeah. Okay.
That was
yeah.
So I think it was I was in the 6th grade, or I don't know. I remember that our principal had an assembly for us, and just to get our minds off of it, he brought in a cowboy star, an old cowboy, Monty Montana.
Monty
Monty Montana.
Remember? What's that? It was
Bergenville.
and we had an assembly. I think it was Monty Montana, and he did horse, with
Oh,
his
yeah.
horse, and
Rope
so
tricks.
we did
Rope tricks.
rope trick, because
Yeah.
the children were scared. We thought that was it. We're going to
Yeah.
get bombed and we were all
Yeah.
going to die. So the principal had this assembly for us, and just kind of to get our minds off of this horrible stuff that might be happening to us.
I was oblivious. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, we get to walk, we get to leave school, and I don't have to.
Yeah, I know. Same
I have
here.
to do math.
It was a kick. Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of natural
What's it?
disasters, were you all here during the big earthquake?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
1970.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
I'm sorry.
The big earthquake. This was the earthquake that hit just very shortly after Carmen Paramo died, right?
Yeah, and
71.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
this
February
what-
9th.
I was just
February
a
9th,
baby.
79?
Yeah.
I was just a few weeks old.
No,
No,
it was
February
it-
9th, 1971.
71.
I was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, Clarissa was in the bassinet.
yeah, I
Rolling back.
remember we were already living in a neighborhood in the 2-story house where my mother lived until she died. Well, where Clarisa is actually right now. And it shook really hard because we were upstairs where all the kids were sleeping.
Yeah.
But that was a very powerful, and that was my first experience
Yeah.
with a quake like that.
Yeah.
Scary, really scary. I thought it was the end of the world.
What time of day did
Yeah.
that happen?
6 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very early in the morning. Mhm.
On a school day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what happened with the rest of your days?
We still went to school that day.
I think
I
so.
remember because there were aftershocks, and I think all of us wanted to go to school so we can all tell our own stories.
Right.
Mhm.
But I remember aftershocks like in the library and being in one of the classrooms and kids cry, girls crying, and I'm thinking, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, me too. I wasn't scared.
Mm-mm. It was scared at first, but then when I realized it was an earthquake, then fine.
I thought it was bitching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really bitching.
Really bitching.
There you go, Liz.
Bitchin' Bonnaroo.
Do you remember, Mary?
Yes, I was in college, and I was in the second story in one of the dormitories. And
Where
it
were you
shook
going to school?
really- I went to Cal Lutheran, CLU. Back then it was CLC. Now it's a university, but in Thousand Oaks.
Hmm.
And it shook really hard, and my roommates and I were really scared. We went to classes that day, I think, but it shook quite a bit. And
Do you remember what magnitude it was? The earthquake?
7. It was 7.
was in the
7.1 or,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
in the 7s. I
yeah,
thought it was 7.4. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
would have been.
Mhm.
yeah.
So was that a worse experience, or was it sort of old hat when the earthquake when was it, 92?
94.
94.
That one seemed, it was different. That one I think was more destruction, the one in 94.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we
Yeah,
knew
and-
people.
Right. For
Like
me,
that.
it wasn't quite as scary in 94 because by that time I was a Christian. But before that, I was very superstitious and I had all kinds of weird things going on in my head about that first earthquake. I thought it's the end of the world or whatever. But in 94, it was like, okay, I know who's in control.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was scared.
You were
Well, you
scared,
weren't a
Clarissa?
Christian yet.
I was
You hadn't been dehorned.
Yeah, I was not.
I was scared in 94, but nothing like in the one in 72 or whatever. That one was.
Yeah, that was scary.
But
That was scary.
I was already working. I was working at the county, and you know, I went to work the morning of the earthquake. I remember getting dressed, and I was the only nurse that showed up with a pressed uniform on my unit because I had ironed my uniforms the day before.
Where did you work, Nora?
I worked at Simí Hospital, and I showed up, and they said, and everything was matching. I even had a ribbon in my hair. I remember getting on the floor, and the nurses were going, "Where did you come from?" And I said, "What do you mean? We just had an earthquake." And I said, "And I ironed my clothes last night." I had ironed my uniforms for the week on the night before, so you know, I was pressed and prepared.
So to switch gears a little bit, I wanted to ask you about your relatives. Did you still have relatives in Mexico that you were in contact with? And did
We
you
still
visit
do.
Mexico, or did
Yes.
they come
Yes.
here?
No, they were there.
No,
Talk a
we
little
still
bit.
had some.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of our relatives moved up here in the 60s. They immigrated here. That you know, my mom's siblings, 3 of them are still in Mexico, and they've never immigrated out here. Oops, sorry. But they'd always when we lived in the ranch and we were kids, the ranch where we lived was their stopping point. Everybody kind of came and they landed at our house, and we took care of them or you know, housed them until they found housing and stuff. So you know, there was always somebody in your bed.
Yeah.
Always sharing the bed with somebody.
Or in the garage. Yeah.
Or the
Oh
garage,
yeah, I slept under the stairs for a long time. So
Harry Potter. Oh, you know, may I add something going back to historical? I
Sure.
forgot to mention. I just remember in 1964 when the Beatles came
Oh,
to yeah.
Oh.
Oh, we went Beatle crazy.
oh,
The 4 of us,
Beatle.
the 4 older girls, we went Beatle crazy. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We imitated the Beatles. We would take our hair, tuck it under with bobby pins, so we would look like Ringo, and you know, we won a show, I think, in a lip sync at the elementary
As a matter of fact, the schools, at least our elementary school, Parkview Elementary, used to have what we called Maynard Day, and it was and Maynard was a beatnik character from a show called the Dobie Gillis Show, and he was just the cool thing, you know. But once the Beatles hit, then it became Beatle Day. So we were allowed to dress like Beatles and to have lip syncs and stuff. So it was a kind of a carnival atmosphere kind of day at school. And we did look forward to a couple of years of Beatle Day.
Yeah. I was always George.
I
I didn't like George. I wanted to be Paul.
No. Paul is where it's. Oh, actually, you had to be George. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I had to be George.
Victor and I had a kindergarten teacher, Miss
What's that?
Swanson. Victor and I had a kindergarten teacher, Miss Swanson,
Oh, yeah.
and she used to wear slip-on high heels, and she was the grooviest teacher in the world. Groovy, I mean groovy. And she would always play her Beatles, that Beatles album. Victor remembers her fondly. And he just remembered how she would kick her slip-on heels off and be dancing to the Beatles, and so do I. It was just,
In the classroom.
oh my God, she was so groovy.
And I heard she was reprimanded for that too, though.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got reprimanded. Yeah, Miss Kivitz or whatever, you know, what is it, ratted her out. Miss Kivitz was a little,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so she ratted her out.
I would have too.
So besides groovy, what was other terminology when you guys were teenagers or kids?
Boss.
Boss?
We didn't use boss, though. We used bitchin'. The surfers used boss.
Yeah, and we didn't really use groovy. You know, we thought we made fun of people who used groovy.
Teachers used the word groovy.
Tough. How about tough? We
Tough.
used to use tough.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really tough. Tough chick. Yeah, that was a tough
and she
party.
was tough. Oh, he's so
You guys
tough.
didn't use Twitchin?
Twitching? No, we were making fun of Fred Flintstone.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah, we didn't really use it.
Please. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so tough.
Tough lasted a long time.
Yeah, we didn't really say far out. We had hippie friends who said far out, and out of sight. Out of sight was a kind of a Hollywoodized
Yeah.
term.
So was groovy. Groovy was more
Groovy.
Squares used groovy.
Except that groovy was used, or groovin was used in a lot of songs, and if they were used in songs from the hit parade, that was bitchin'. But if you're using groovy as just like, well, that's really groovy, we go, ew, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Well,
I
the
heard
hippies used
or boffo or boffo.
You all froze on me. There you go.
Mhm.
Could you guys talk like that around your parents, or did you have to clean up your language at home?
Well, we couldn't say bitchin'.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could say tough and
Wow.
and cool but there were
Yeah, you
certain
could get-
words that they just it was for squares, and we weren't square, we were cool.
Yeah. And among our peers, because we were sort of raised in a different kind of culture. I mean, we were very Mexican in our culture growing up. And yet the kids in the barrio were more of the, pachuco, like what you call greasers, lowrider types. But they would make fun of us, call us coconuts, like I mentioned last week. But we hung out with a variety of people. And I would say that most of our friends were white. So we hung out with like surfer types when we were younger and hippie types when we were older.
Hippie. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were wannabe hippies, because hippies smoked pot, and we didn't do that. So we just.
Well, you don't know that. No.
Well, I'm sorry. We didn't openly smoke.
No, we didn't.
Was it ever a challenge for you guys to be sort of between those two cultures? And particularly as girls being between those two cultures, Mexican and American? Or did they just feel the same for you?
I
think
me personally, we could hang with anybody.
Yeah.
I had more of because I was real outspoken, I was into drama, and I was into, I was the class clown in my high school senior year, and just kind of wild child. And the lowriders, or the Mexicans that, like we had a cousin, she used to, womp on me when I was in junior high because I hung around with white kids. And so I didn't get that. It's like, well, these are my friends. We had Mexican friends, we had white friends, we had everybody. And they stuck only to their kind.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And only R&B. We were listening to Jethro Tull, Cream, we listened to it all.
Mm-hmm.
Soul music, the Supremes, the Temptations. We
loved all that. But we also loved the Beatles, and they didn't do Beatles.
Yeah, they didn't do Beatles.
Yeah.
I think what happened, the reason that we had friends from the different, cultures, because when we were growing up, we went to so many schools, and we didn't necessarily have the same friends. Like, let's say this year, and then we go to another school because they were open.
That's right.
So we met a variety of people, and I think because we lived in the ranch, we didn't live in that barrio area that we were telling you about, that quadrant that we were explaining to you between Ventura and Avenue and LA Avenue, First Street.
Yeah.
What was it? First Street, Fourth Street. No. Yeah, so a lot of them lived there. We didn't, and so we had a variety of friends, and we always go to the same schools. So we talked to both sides, to the Mexicans and the Chicanos, and the lowriders, and we had friends in every. We got along.
Yeah.
With them, so.
Yeah, I felt protected when I was going to high school. There were the really hard chicks. There were the kind of the wannabe Chicanas, but were white. which is interesting because there was some girls that were white, but they acted like the Chicanas. Some of them even put on the accent. But some of these chicks were really tough. And so I would hang out sometimes with my cousin who hung out with all those people. And I felt protected. And so I could go from one group of hard chicks. Yeah, Tony. Oh, she loved me.
She hated me.
Oh, she loved me. I was cute. I was cute. So I could hang out with her, and the same day I could hang out with my little white wallflower friends or my drama freak, you know. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Nora?
I don't know. I used to look up to my sister, so I thought I kind of got a kick out of as a matter of fact, some years back, my brothers and I were talking, and I said, you know, it was cool. Sometimes they acted white, and sometimes they acted Chicana. So, you know, we had Chicana powers sometimes, and then, you know, hey man, cool on the other. So I enjoyed the diversity. Like, okay, so this year we're Chicanos, man. Then you know, these couple of months we're white power or whatever.
We were diverse.
We were pretty well rounded. I don't think I ever identified with one, you know, group or class or anything like that. I had friends that were like in high school. I had my private school, you know, girlfriends, and it was an all-girls school. Very different from my friends out here in Simí, but I was never part of like a clique per se. I wasn't, you know, a Chicana or a surfer or whatever, or a valley girl. It was just whoever you were hanging out with, you just assimilate, I guess.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of that valley girl stuff going on when you were coming up, Clarisa?
In my years, yeah. Everything was rad. Yeah,
I was already out of high school then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about fashion? What sort of fashion was going on when you were in high school, and how much of that did you have to hide from your folks?
Well, who are you asking?
All of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, definitely when you'd leave the house dressed a certain way and take something different. Like I liked it because I had PE first period. And so you could go dressed to school a certain way, and I'd bring my change of clothes, whatever it was, you know, that I could get away with. But that was more in my senior year. And also first year of college. I only went for 2 weeks to college. But hot pants in 1971 were really hot. And so I'd leave the house dressed a certain way. And as soon as I got to my location, I'd put my hot pants on, you know, with my boots.
Which, of course, today are considered modest compared to the volleyball girls' shorts. So you want to talk about hot. Yeah, hot pants was one. We would sometimes wear coats or whatever over what we weren't supposed to wear. Yeah. Or sometimes I would have a skirt pulled down as much as I could just above my knees. Yes. And then as soon as I get to school, well, you know, pull it up where it was supposed to be.
Get up.
Yeah.
But mini skirts, you know.
Yeah, mini skirt. Yeah.
Black pants. Well, we never went braless though. I don't remember going braless.
No, because then they would have thought I was a boy.
Yeah, when women were burning their bras.
I wore a uniform for 12 years, so I didn't really.
A school uniform?
Yeah.
What about when you weren't at school?
My mom, you know, liked to make sure we were always dressed modestly, so I wore what she said I could wear.
Yeah.
Maybe like when I got a little bit older, maybe senior in high school, I started wearing, I never wore pants. I think I was a senior before I started really wearing pants, because I always wore a skirt to school for all those years. And then on free dress days, I still had to wear a skirt. So I think I started buying pants when I was already 18.
Because you didn't live on the ranch.
No.
Okay. What about you, Mary?
Yeah, in junior high, I had to wear socks, and I used to take them off on the way to the bus.
Those are rebels.
And you had hand lines.
Yeah.
And then pulling up the skirt, and then as it became pulling up the skirt a little, so it wouldn't be so long. But my mom was really strict about the way we, she didn't want us to show too much. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes my sisters, I don't know if it was Bertha, she saw me taking off my socks and she told on me, and then so the secret was out. She told mom that I was taking off my socks at the bus stop or something.
She broke confidence. Well, one thing too to remember is that there were strict, compared to what today for sure, there were strict dress codes at school.
Yeah.
Once we hit junior high and high school, junior high was very strict. We even had the dean of girls would come with a ruler and measure your hemline. Mm-hmm. Or if you had a run in your nylons, because we were supposed to wear dresses, if you had a run in your stockings, you'd get some kind of discipline for it.
You wore stockings to school?
Well, in junior high, yeah. That's once you got junior high, like, we're going to wear nylons. We call them nylons.
Nylons.
Yeah. But in high school, the last year that I remember a dress code, it was my sophomore year.
Yeah.
And girls could wear pants, but they had to wear pantsuits. So you couldn't wear jeans and that sort of thing. As soon as they lifted that dress code, all heck broke loose because, girls were showing their midriffs. They were wearing very low-cut pants with, everything showing. I mean, it got out of control.
When was that?
Yeah, and then by the time I was a
1971-ish, 72.
Because in 70 and 71,
yeah,
hip hugger pants came in. And I remember wearing that big, thick belt with the big buckles and going to the swap meet and buying all that hippie garb. And
prison shirts,
Was the swap meet at the drive-in?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the place to go on Sundays.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Head to the swap meet.
Yeah.
Because all the cute guys were there.
Yeah. It was the hangout. Yeah. And by the way, also before Simí grew too much, there weren't very many parks. I don't know if we mentioned to you that Oak Park was also a hangout, but it was mostly a hangout where Hispanics would picnic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was our picnic joint, was Oak Park.
Yeah. As a family, we did a lot of family gatherings there at Oak Park with our cousins
Holidays.
And
extended family
holiday.
Yeah. 4th of July.
Wasn't that where they
Easter.
had the St. Rose Carnival also? Like one of the first places they had the carnival?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the back part.
The back part of the park, yeah.
Park. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I talked to you a little bit about this before, Frances, but I don't think we've talked about this as a group. During my research, I came across some letters in the archive at Strathern and also some articles that I found online about discrimination, racism, segregation that happened in Simi Valley and in Ventura, the county of Ventura. And I just wondered if that was something that you could talk about, your personal experiences with any of that, anything that your parents may have shared with you about that. I guess the school in Simí, the elementary school, had been segregated until 1946. I read that the movie theater in Moore Park had been segregated. Just if you guys can talk about any of how that may have impacted your lives, or if it impacted your lives, just what your memories are about that. And we can go around or however you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I could start.
Okay.
So by the time we went to school, there was no segregation because I started school in 1956. So, but my dad's he went to see me the elementary school, and it was segregated, and it was done mainly because a lot of the children that went there, they didn't speak English, so it was a language thing. They spoke mainly Spanish, and so that was the main reason that they segregated them. That's what my dad would tell us, that it was because the majority of them spoke Spanish, and they were by the time they went to high school though, because I think at that time, I'm not exact, I think the high school would start at 9th grade, and by then you were integrated. You were, you knew enough English, I guess, that you could be a success in high school. So elementary, the 1 through the 8th grade was segregated, and then they were integrated in high school. And it was mainly because of the
language,
the population, the language, yes. And a lot of these people lived either in the ranches or there was an area in the Tapo Street area, Tapo, where my dad grew up. And
Ditch Road and Reservoirs Road.
They just called it El Tapo, right? That area. Simí, and then Tapo.
Yeah.
So they were raised in that little community, so they were kind of a little cloister. But pretty much, I mean, my dad knew English, but they were still segregated because they put, all Hispanics in one side or classroom or whatever, and those whose first language was English on the other side. Now, I'm sure that there was a tinge, if not more, of racism there. But I saw, as far as my experience in school, I didn't really have much of that. I had teasing about, the food. Sometimes my mother would pack us burritos for lunch. And so a kid one time said, "Oh, you got poop and pancakes," because there was a bean burrito. Poop and pancakes, We'd get those kinds of weird teasing. So I remember one time in elementary school, I was in one of the bathroom booths sitting on the toilet to eat my lunch there, not to go, because I didn't want to eat my burrito in front of some other kids. So I looked down and I saw a pair of shoes that I recognized, and they were my sister Liz. And probably crumbs of our potato burrito fall on the ground. I said, Chave is her nickname. Chave, is that you? Yeah. What are you doing? I'm eating my lunch. So there was a little bit of that teasing because we had, different kind of food. And
Clarisa, you talked about your dad's the way that they doled out school supplies when your dad was going to school in Simí.
Dad told me stories about how they would give the Mexican kids the previous years, like broken crayons and the stubby pencils and whatever was left over. The teacher would collect them, all the teachers would collect them, and then that was the Mexican classroom's school supplies for the following year. And they did have separate eating areas during lunchtime. They didn't get to eat with the other kids. They had their own separate eating area. They had their classrooms had like leaky roofs. So during the rain, while the other kids were in the actual school building, they were in, like, I don't know if they were like temporary type buildings or
I think it was like old buildings, because the school started, it was built, and then they started expanding newer buildings. So they were in the older ones.
So they said that they would have, like, he would have the classroom, and then they would just, have water coming in during the rainy season, and they just have little buckets here collecting the water. But I even remember that, like, at Nana's house, it's like the roof would leak and there would just be buckets all over the house. And
the house we grew up in did too. Yeah.
So it's like you put buckets up when it rained. So that's how their classroom was.
Mary, didn't you say, I think it's kind of a funny story that our dad's sister got so angry at one of the teachers? What did she do?
Yeah. Okay, so yes, my dad's sister in elementary school.
What's her name?
They had a real mean. Her name was
Catalina.
Catalina. She's Catalina. She was there was a very mean teacher with the Hispanic kids, the Mexican kids, and nobody liked her. And one time the teacher went into the supply closet or supply cabinet, something. It was a small thing, but she could fit in there. She went in there, and my aunt locked her up in there, and locked her up in the supply because she couldn't stand her, and nobody went to the teacher's help because they hated her. Yeah, so they left her there until after school, and then somebody, I guess a custodian, went to rescue her. I don't know, but all the kids were.
We don't want to even imagine what happened the next day.
This would have been in the 1930s?
No,
Yeah,
no,
30.
Oh,
My dad was born
early 40s.
31.
Yeah.
And she was born 30s.
Yeah,
we've
late
been in
30s, early
Late 30s. Yeah, early. Yeah.
early
Yeah.
40s.
Now he did talk about some very nice teachers that he had too. Like there was one that was his favorite. It was Mrs. Gerard, my dad's favorite teacher. And she actually, my kindergarten teacher too. So they had some nice teachers in there. It was just, this one was mean, just like in regular, we all remember nice teachers and those who were mean.
Yeah. Mhm.
And Dad was they skipped a grade. He got to skip a grade because he was a real good reader. He was smart. So they skipped him. I don't know which grade he skipped, but he did skip a grade.
I've got all of his passing certificates, so yeah.
Yeah.
You said
I
that your
think he
dad,
started
that
high
the,
school.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Mom.
he skipped a grade, and when he went to high school, I think he was like 13, and he didn't stay because he had to go to work. But
To support the family.
Yeah.
His brother and sister and mom.
Yeah.
You said that when your dad was growing up, he lived in a community out near Ditch Road. Was that Citrus Ranch camp housing?
Yep.
What
It was the labor housing in Tapo for people who worked for the Tapo Citrus Association.
and that's where his
He didn't
parents were.
necessarily lived there a long time. That's just where he was born. I don't think he stayed there because his parents ended up getting in their own house.
Right. But
He was born there and then moved to the west end of Simí.
Right.
Yeah.
He was born there, but he lived there long enough to where even his little brother lived there and went to the school. He would take the school bus at the end of the road. So our dad did live there for a number of years, but yeah, they eventually got out of there. I mean, yeah. And of course,
Where did his parents live? Where did his parents, when they moved out of there, they bought a house in the west end of Simí?
My dad moved out and lived in the west end of Simí, but I don't remember what house I guess it's where he met our mother. I don't remember. But my dad's aunt, this was his dad's sister, Aurelia. Her and her husband bought land on Ashland Avenue. And so because lots were being sold and for a good price. And so several of the Tapo community people that lived there, the laborers, they decided to go start buying their own land and building their own houses.
When was that?
Well, that was
must have been in the early 40s.
Yeah, I would imagine it was in the early 40s, yeah. Because the Aurelia was a young wife,
Yeah.
So they, a lot of these people took advantage of it. So there was opportunity, while there might have been racism, there was racism going on, and there was a different class. It's not like the people there weren't presented with opportunity and the ability to buy and build. And so a lot of those people ended up living there in the barrio in Old Simí and built their homes. They bought their little lots, they built their homes, and they had successful little lives,
What about in your lives when you were growing up? Did any of you experience any kind of discrimination?
The discrimination that I felt very, very strong was not against me. It was to favor me. I got hired into Rocketdyne because of the, what was it, the equal opportunity, what would they call it in the time?
Yeah.
Because I was
The affirmative action.
affirmative action. Because I had
Yeah.
Hispanic blood, there was a guy a nice man from the Club Latino. My parents belonged to it too. It was a Latin club. And he says, Francis, there's opportunity for Mexican Americans to get good jobs. And the reason it was given to me, it was because I was Hispanic. And I didn't think, I thought at the time, well, that's great, I'll take it. But I thought that was unfair. I always thought that was unfair.
Yeah.
To favor giving this person a job just because of the color of their skin or their culture, instead of, do they qualify?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't think I used anything affirmative action. And my dad didn't really push that. He
No.
said you could take advantage of it, but he didn't really push that.
My dad never pushed also. He discouraged us from ever getting government help.
Yeah.
He says, don't ever resort to welfare. Do not resort to the government. Do not put your hand out. You work.
Yeah.
And you pay your own way.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Work we did.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the first conversations I had with Frances was about her time in the 70s, and you talked about Chicano power. Was that prevalent? Was that prevalent in the valley? In Simí
Well,
Valley?
by the time we were in high school, the Hispanic community was much smaller. It wasn't, we were outnumbered, but I came into Chicano power because I was a hippie and my hippie boyfriend cheated on me. So I broke up with him, and the next day I ratted my hair, doused my face with makeup, and became Chicano power. I mean,
What was that? What was that movement?
That movement was the farm workers, Cesar Chavez. And
Yes, Cesar Chavez.
And he got, and I didn't know what I was fighting for. I just knew that there were cuter guys if I put makeup and ratted my hair. That's all I cared about. That was my Chicano power. I could have more boyfriends.
I think that whole movement, I don't know what you think, Mary, but I think that movement, what it did was it created an atmosphere of hatred and racism against whites. And I remember these poets that would come. Okay, we would actually get a day off high school if you were Chicano or whatever, to go to Moore Park College where this festivity thing was going on. And we loved it because, we could get away, get out of school for a day, and they'd have these poets reading stuff and giving speeches that were so loaded with hatred against white people.
Yeah.
If there was a point, and I had, some of my friends from school there, blonde girls, and there was a guy who said, we don't need these blonde bleeps. We've got our own little, brown girls. And I just thought, even then, I thought that is uncomfortable.
Right.
It was just, but for me, I thought of it more as a party atmosphere with something to do and something to flaunt. Yeah. And all it did was it stirred up resentment and hatred that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was bad. Yeah. It was not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mary, do you remember any of that?
This movement, okay, so I went to Cal Lutheran, and I was helped by the Club Latino. They, I always wanted to go to college, and my plan was to, after I graduated from high school, I was going to go to Moore Park College, and then from there transfer, do it that way. But through my parents' involvement in this club, Hispanic club, they were able to help me get get into Cal Lutheran. My grades were pretty good, in college, in high school, but I could never afford it. So I was awarded, some grants and some loans to go to school, and so I took advantage of it. And that was back in 1969. So I actually graduated from Cal Lutheran with a BA. And but while I was at Cal Lutheran in Thousand Oaks, I did, that's when I was introduced to the Mecha Club and all that. And a friend of mine, my friend, a friend who was, she was from Moore Park. She was also, Mexican, and she was actually born in Mexico, and then her family moved to Moore Park. And we didn't understand the whole thing in Mecha, because it was, to us, it seemed so racist. And he goes, hey, you guys were here, and we'd get into arguments because a lot of it was a very small group at Cal Lutheran of Mexicans, Americans, and they were from the LA area, and they were, so in LA, they experienced a lot more discrimination, and we didn't identify with that because we grew up over here in the Ventura County where and went to school. So we didn't identify with that, I hate that hatred that. So when we were in Mecha, we'd go to the meetings, and there were some fun activities, like Elizabeth and Francis were talking about, a lot of party and stuff like that, carnivals. But the whole thing about not getting along with the Hispanics and back then it was the Chicano power, getting along with the white people. It just didn't. We didn't understand that. We didn't understand it, And
our mother was really offended too. We took her to one of those evenings where a guy gave speeches or whatever, and she just found him to be so offensive. And my mom came from, that culture, but not that kind of thing. Yeah.
Two things I wanted to ask about that was, do you remember the movie theater in Moore Park being segregated? The article that I sent you, Francis, was somebody talking about memories of going into the theater, and the Mexican kids had to sit, or the Mexican people had to sit on one side of the theater where there was a line down the center.
I know our parents went to that theater, but I don't remember them mentioning that. Do you, Mary?
No, I just remember that when they went to the theater, they would have, sometimes on some nights they would show Mexican movies. And I think maybe, they went to see the Mexican, language movies.
Cantinflas.
But yeah.
What were you saying, Nora?
Yeah.
She's
Cantinflas.
He was a comedian, a comedy actor in Mexico. Cantinflas.
Okay.
Yeah. But I never heard of any segregation in the theater. He never mentioned it. So.
Yeah, I never heard it either.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that I sent was an article by Lucy Chavez, who was, you said, a family friend. And there's a lot of information in the Strathern Park about her pushing back against local history because she felt that it wasn't representative of the Chicano culture here. Do you remember her talking about any of that when you were growing up with her?
That might have been her experience. Girls, didn't Lucy Chavez live in the barrio?
Yeah.
Okay, that might have been her experience because she was kind of cloistered in a Chicano environment. But it wasn't, it certainly wasn't our experience.
But that's not something that she spoke about with you guys, or that you remember.
And we weren't really close to Lucy Chavez. I mean, we knew who she was. She knew our parents.
Yeah.
But because of the way we were raised, we were just raised differently than the kids that grew up in the barrio. Because
they chose to stay that way.
Yeah, and my dad wanted us to succeed, and so it was education. You had to be reading, doing homework,
work.
Work. You had to have a job, and you had to respect people, and so that was my strife with the Mexican kids that I went to high school with. I didn't fit in with them because I didn't speak with an accent. And they wanted to keep that, hey, you guys, that sing-songy kind of whatever. like, am I, it just, that's not who we were.
Mhm.
And,
We
yeah.
never spoke that way.
yeah.
No,
was
we
part
think
of
like,
that was
Mhm,
part
go
of the
ahead.
difference that your parents had been here for so long before it because you guys were born here? And
No, a lot
maybe
of
the-
those kids, their parents were born here too.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They weren't
I
born in,
I just think that sometimes people, when they, among the raza, when they were crying out racism, first of all, I think that whole Cesar Chavez movement and Mecha and all that, I think that did make an impact on people who were looking for excuses to say, how come I didn't get out of this culture what white people get? I just think people resorted to that as an excuse, and the guy who the people who were talking about Moore Park and the segregation and losing the culture of the Feast of Guadalupe, and the streets used to be lined with women with rebosos, shawls. It's like, and cultures change. Other cultures come in and we share, and you don't have to forget your culture, but now that you're not going to line the streets with rebosos and whatever else you do, enjoy it at home. Nobody's saying you can't, But I find it really offensive when I hear people from the gente, we call them, Hispanics, complaining about inequality and all that. I'm thinking, well, what are you being deprived of here? Because like my sisters and I, we enjoy it. We have not suffered to the point where, we've been discriminated against. We just can't have the kind of life that everybody else around here has. Not true.
and our father was a hardworking farm worker, and then he was a custodian. He wasn't some engineer or some attorney, or he just had a different value system than the people he grew up with. Because like I said, a lot of those people that we went to school with, and they were born and raised here.
Yeah.
There's a girl that lives up here that she was born in Tapo, and her mother lived there, Yolanda Sanchez.
Oh, yeah.
All the Sanchez girls were born in Tapo.
I didn't know that.
The mother lived here, and they all went to school with my dad. I mean, they all knew each other, and the Hernandezes, they were all here. Some of them chose to succeed, and others did not. They waited for somebody to do for them.
Yeah,
and,
the Sanchez girls' dad, he built them a house. They lived in a nice place there. They owned their own land
in the barrio.
in the barrio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't really experience that. And, Marty and Sylvia and all those guys, they all went on to be successful career women without a college education, and didn't have this chip on their shoulder or you're always going to find, and not to put Lucy Chavez down, because maybe that was her experience, but it wasn't everybody's experience.
No.
Not by the time we came into the picture.
Yeah. You were going to say
I
something?
also wanted to add that there were a lot of people I guess my dad's, like a lot of the older people, like my dad's parents, and they never learned how to speak English. They never learned. They just stayed. They always spoke Spanish.
That's right.
And in fact, some people who came from like my mom's age, they also they didn't learn the language. But my dad had the attitude that you're in this country, you're going to learn English.
Amen.
So my mom, although she was born here, she was raised in Mexico, didn't speak a word of English, and Dad started they would, back then you would pay your bills, you'd go to the place and pay electricity, this and that, and he would make my mom get off the car and you go pay the bill. You talk to the people, and she'd say, or if you take her to the doctor because she was, a doctor visit because she was pregnant, and he would not get off the car. He'd make her do it. He goes, you have to make yourself understood. You have to learn the language. And
when
it
she
was
came
kinda
back
hard,
from
but-
Mexico, she didn't speak English.
No, because she left when she
No,
was
she-
4, came back when she was,
Yeah.
what, 20, 21 or
Yeah.
whatever. So she didn't speak a word of English. And then I remember as little kids, going to elementary school when we were learning, because we spoke Spanish. And then Mary started going to school, and so we started speaking more English because my dad spoke it. My uncle Chuy spoke it. He lived with us. My dad's the youngest brother. And then my dad would encourage us to speak English in the house so my mom could learn to speak English.
Yes.
And it was like sink or swim. And my mom learned the language.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. She even took English classes. And she did have, there were certain friends and relatives, Hispanics, who would tease her about that.
Yeah.
She also went out and got her license. I mean, she tried, and she mingled with people that, were not just gente. And she had a lot of friends. You can kind of measure a person's character by the amount of people that show up to their funerals. And my parents, both of theirs, were packed. And that's a huge building, that church that they go to. But it was packed when my dad died and when my mom died, of all kinds of people, white, Hispanic, black, you name it. So.
Yeah.
So speaking of your parents, were there different expectations of you girls than there would have been for your brothers?
Oh yeah, the double standard.
Yeah, big
Mary,
double
you want to start?
And do you think that was cultural, or where do you, just tell me about that?
Yeah, they were stricter, I think, with the girls, as far as going out, and they were stricter, I think. And it could have been that the first 4 were girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first 4 were girls, so he had teenagers like right away. And my dad was a young man. He was only like 19 years older than me. And so he became a father of teenage girls at a very young age. So they were stricter. However, there was not a double standard as far as education is concerned. He always wanted all of his children to graduate from high school, to go on to college. Yeah, that was very important. As far as working, you got to a certain age. If you wanted to buy some extra things, you go and you get yourself a part-time job. We were babysitting at a very young age, and cleaning houses, working at a hamburger place or a restaurant. So he didn't have a double standard on that. It was just more the going out, dating. He was strict on the dating. Yeah, we could not go somewhere unchaperoned our chaperones were our little brothers. They went with us. If we went to the show with our boyfriend, or a couple of them would tag along, and anywhere, that's how it was for the first 4 girls, at least. It was brother was strict.
Yeah, there was more expected of us when it came to just morality.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, how we dressed. Of course, not that my brothers had any reason to dress weird. I mean, they just were standard, But how we presented ourselves, going, how the late hours. If we'd come in, we had to come in at a certain time. It wasn't so with my brothers. They weren't checking up on my brothers the way they checked up on us.
Yeah. And also, when we started working in the summer, a full-time job in the summer, 50% went to the house. So my mom would go to the us, and she took 50% of your check up to the household. The boys never had to do that. They were supposed to pay. They were supposed to give something. And,
was that Nora?
They weaseled their way out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because they dealt with my mom, my mom was softer with the boys. She just, she made excuses.
Mama's boys.
Our oldest brother, or the oldest boy in the house, he was the first male. And the first male child he's just like, oh, it's a boy, you know.
Yeah.
And we weren't jealous of him at all, but he got special treatment because he was the first son.
Mhm.
And there were 4 girls ahead of him, but you know, he got the, I don't know, he just got treated differently.
Sure, he did. Yeah, he
helped
did.
him buy the first car. We all had to share the first car.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He had a nice Camaro Super Sport as his first car.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We shared a Nova station wagon between
Mind you, our brothers, all of our brothers, well, one who lives at home, though, he's got different needs, but all of our brothers are otherwise very successful in their businesses. They've all done very well, had their families, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that they gave a lot of trouble, but then some of us girls did too. But, you know, by the grace of God, everybody turned out halfway decent. No,
Right.
I'm just curious though, while you're talking on this subject, Clarisa, how you perceived the way you were being raised. Were you held up to the same standards we were?
I think so, yeah. It was definitely different between Chato and myself. My
Oh,
youngest
okay.
brother, Chato. So it was just the two of us. We were kind of raised at the end of the line. And so there were definitely different expectations with curfews, going out with friends. I didn't really get to go spend the night at friends' houses, and he would get that privilege. He used to get to go out a lot. But I understand why now, you know, what our parents were being protective and stuff, but
Yeah.
as a kid, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
As far as like you said, your morality, your presentation, how you went out and how you were perceived, you know, that was really important to my parents. You know, my dad would always say that, you know, you only get to make a first impression once. So that was a big thing with him. And I'm like, you know, so go out and comb your hair and try again before you go out.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I think also added, I just wanted to add, I think what added a lot to the way they, you know, they were very good Catholics, and they went to church, and we went with them. And there was a lot of, you know, we were, that was very stressed in our family. So they wanted to make sure that we knew what was right and wrong, you know, and so they raised us that way. The raised in the church had a lot to do with the morality. And,
Right.
And in fact, as little girls, one of our favorite things to play was convent. At least the first 4 girls and my brother. We played Catholic things. You know, sometimes Benny was the priest, and he would take bottle caps, and
Mary was
Mother Superior. Yeah. We would cut out little wafers, little circles of tortilla, and Benny would give us the communion. Sometimes some of us were the poor little beggarly children. The orphans knocking at the door of the convent.
Bertha was always the streetwalker. The woman of the
here,
world,
you know,
needed to be taken in.
We were raised in a very strict Roman Catholic culture.
Yeah.
Very strict.
Even the nuns thought it was too strict.
I think that sometimes we would chime in at catechism, some of our traditions, and they'd be like, you know, where'd you get that? But no, we prayed. My mother led us in the rosary as far back as I can remember, every single night of my life. And so sometimes, you know, you'd be watching the Patty Duke show, like in 1965 or something, and she'd say, turn off the TV, it's time to pray the rosary. No, it's not over. Patty Duke hasn't gotten her boyfriend and whatever. But we had to turn off the TV and kneel down and pray the rosary every single night.
And even when we started going out on dates, as
Uh-huh.
soon as the guys show up, my mom would say it's time to pray the rosary. But the movie's gonna start at the drive-in or the wherever, and you're already gonna load up all the kids in your car to go to the show. And she'd say, "Nope, on your knees, start
Yeah.
praying." Like, yeah.
We dutifully went to every holy day of obligation, every Stations of the Cross,
Every
every
mass.
Sunday. Yeah, I mean, every mass. But when we were really small, my mother was such a hardworking woman. She'd make our clothes. So a lot of times were very pretty little dresses that she would make,
Mhm.
you know, and she always had us very neatly dressed, neatly combed, all of us with our hair curled or whatever. And church was really, really important to her.
Yeah.
So how we were presented was important from the time we were very small.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what kind of future did you see for yourselves when you were little as girls?
None in a convent.
I wanted to be a nun too.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an actress in Hollywood.
Awesome.
As a little girl, you wanted to be an actress?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How sinful and
famous.
evil.
I wanted to be famous.
I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. I remember being across the street from Simí Hospital with my dad in that tan truck from the ranch and telling him, one day, Dad, I'm going to work there. And I did it.
That's true.
Yeah.
I also then wanted to be a mom with a lot of kids because I wanted to be a mom. So I thought I'd have 13 kids
Never, I
also.
never.
Wow.
What about you, Mary?
Yeah, I wanted to be a nun at first, but we used to play nuns. And then I wanted to be a teacher, and that's what I became. I was a teacher. And I did want to have a family also. So, and that's what I did. I had 4 children of my own. And I worked as a teacher for several years.
Yeah.
What about you, Liz? What did you?
I got to high school. I mean, I was at the end of high school, and I go to my my exit counseling appointment with the counselor, your high school counselor, and I said, okay, so what do I need to do in order to? My dad says I have to go to college, and he goes, well, you don't need to go to college. You're going to be an actress. You're going to be famous. And I go, oh, okay. So I go home, and I had been in this drama festival, and I got a card from an agent, a talent agent. And so I told my dad, that's what I'm going to do. And he goes, if you become an actress, we will disown you. And I mean, I was like, I'll disown? This is my dream. Yes, well, I'll disown you. So I had to go to Moore Park College. Well, I had taken all these, cinema classes and all this, doing drama and comedy and whatever in high school. And I didn't need academics. I mean, my last math class was in the 10th grade. My last science class was in the 9th grade because everybody was pushing me that this is what you're going to do. And my dad's going to disown me. So I'm 18 years old. I'm going to get disowned and I have to go to Moore Park College. So I go to Moore Park College. And I didn't know what the heck they were talking about because I hadn't taken a science or math class, just general education.
Same here.
I ended up going to a trade school and became a dental assistant. Nothing I ever dreamt, but it was only 3 months worth of school. So I did that.
And you did that for years.
Yeah, for years. I thrived in that.
Did you have kids, Liz?
I have 2 sons,
2 sons.
40 and 41.
Awesome. What about you, Frances?
Well, at first I wanted to be a nun, and then the hormones came, and then I just wanted a guy. Yeah, and I just pictured myself happily married to an adoring husband, and I felt I wanted to be like Ozzie Harriet or Dennis the Menace's mother or something, just happily married in front of a sink, having children and having an adoring husband. And guess what happened? That happened.
You got it.
I have a very adoring husband.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. But before that, I thought I was going to go into acting. also because I also was in drama in high school. And I was sent to an agent in Hollywood. Mary, you drove me there. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I really didn't want to be a professional actress. I liked theater in high school because it was a chance to be with my friends and to stay out of the house. So I felt very much pushed into this whole agent and you know, the guy wanted to put me in a sitcom called Chico and the Man.
Yeah.
The man.
Chico and the Man, yeah. But anyway, I did enjoy acting a lot, and but I enjoyed being married more. What I did not expect was that someday I'd be a pastor's wife and homeschooling our 3 daughters, but that's what turned out to be.
Awesome. Nora, what about you?
You became the
Well,
nurse you
like I
wanted to
said,
be.
I wanted to be a nurse, and I knew I wanted to be one. As a matter of fact, I remember drawing that at kindergarten. I remember that drawing, and there's a whole thing to that one, but I colored the nurse with tan skin. You know, when I want to go back, when you talked about discrimination. That was the only time that I felt I got discriminated, was so we're drawing these pictures and I'm making the round face and I was trying to make the cap. But anyway, I looked at my skin and I thought, oh gosh. So I colored the skin a little light tan brown and I got kicked off the table. And yeah, they didn't want my picture there. But I was trying to make the hat, and the teacher goes, what are you doing? And I said, it's the cap, you know, the nurse cap. I want to be a nurse. So I wanted to do that, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I did. I became one, and I've been a nurse since 1987, 86, 87, and I love it. And I do have I am a mother of 3 children. I have 2 boys and a girl, and I love my family, and I love my chosen profession. Right now, I'm not working, but I can't wait to get back in it. I absolutely love what I do.
And Clarissa, what about you?
After not
Do you become a nun?
deciding to be a nun.
I never wanted to be a nun.
Worked for off and on through the years. I worked like in home health, doing being a home health aide, and then I worked in the hospital for a little bit doing clerical work on the nursing floor. And then my husband, who was a plumber, wanted to open up his own plumbing company, and we did it. So since then I've been working the last 15 years. We've been running our own company. I just do the office stuff, scheduling, and he goes out. I used to actually do the plumbing work with him when we first started the company. I had to go out there, and I have a lot of scars to prove it. Digging in the trenches and building stuff. We actually built a house together, and that was a lot of fun. The last 12 years I got to spend with my mom. I live in her home, and my brother Victor, so I became her caregiver in her last years, and now I'm with my brother. I help him out, and I have 3 kids who I've also got to homeschool, inspired by Francis. So and I have a grandbaby and a daughter-in-law.
Awesome.
And a wonderful husband who's very he's a very attentive and good husband. Very blessed.
So is mine.
So is mine.
So is mine.
Yeah.
Yes, we all do. Yeah.
Yeah. My husband's a peach. I don't know how he puts up with me. But anyway.
I don't either.
You all did your parents proud. I was thinking, you said that Bertha is also a nurse?
Yes.
And she's working now during this COVID-19 pandemic.
At urgent care in Kaiser.
Yeah.
So Nora, maybe you're lucky not to be out there on
the thing is, I was doing oncology for the last 15 years. I did oncology for 15 years. Loved it. Miss my patients. but my doctor got lured over by City of Hope. So I did not meet the requirements to go to City of Hope because it's a research facility. They basically they're more into the research, and so you kind of have to have a little bit of a background even in the nursing. Who knows, the future might bring me to go work with him again because they opened up an office in Thousand Oaks. So I'm hoping, but I've been offered 100 jobs, but I have to go to the front line of this COVID-19, and I said no, thank you. I love you all. I'll be in the background, but no.
I'd like to ask you all, as women, as mothers, how this pandemic is impacting your lives. And I'd just like to go around, starting with Mary.
Okay. Well, the way it's affected me is I've come to more of an appreciation of people in general, and specifically my family. After in my family, in my life, first, my relationship with God, with Jesus Christ is very important. And after that, it's my relationship with people. And I think in the world, in your life, it's God and then people. Those are the two most important things, because other things can be replaced. A relationship with those two cannot be replaced. And I've done as much as I can during this time to spend time alone with the Lord. I've spent more time now because I have more time reading His Word, praying for different people in my life. Of course, my family. And I've also reached out to other people and encouraged them, during this time. Well, let's go to my family first. I miss my grandchildren and my kids. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and I have 12 grandchildren. I miss them tremendously. So we've done a few drive-by visitations. So we'll drive by the house, pass by really slow, maybe park and wave, and I miss the human touch. The hugging, the kissing. I miss that with them and with my family, my brothers and sisters, my nieces and nephews. I miss that human touch. Yes, we've talked on the phone. We Facebook. We do the what is that, Marco Polo? That's a lot of fun. So we're constantly communicating amongst us with the brothers and sisters, with my kids. But I miss the human touch, and I appreciate people more than ever before. I think we've taken each other for granted. I think as a whole, the whole world, we're isolated from each other, and I miss that human touch. And I've also and I've reached out to people, just sending text messages of encouragement, Bible verses, for them to meditate on, and because I know some of them are going through some very difficult times in their families, and that's how it's affected me. And overall, even though there's been sadness with it, but there's also been, I think a lot of us have seen how when we care about our fellow man, it helps us too, because that's important. That's very important when we're servants to others.
Right.
So that's how it affected my life. Okay, next.
Well, Liz, you're the next older one. Bertha's not with us.
Yeah.
Mm.
When
She is older than me.
yeah, Bertha's, yeah. 1 year. Tomorrow's my birthday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Tomorrow's your birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Almost you too, Frances.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom timed it perfectly, didn't she?
Yeah, she sure did.
For me, the Lord has been very gracious to me. We moved up here 3 years ago, exactly 3 years ago. We retired up in northern Nevada. We're live in a beautiful area. I have a beautiful home. And I only have 2 sons. And when we moved up here, our first granddaughter, our only grandchild, was born. So she's turning 3 at the end of the month here. Anyways, our son, our youngest son is single, and he is starting his own company, and has been wanting to move up here and get away from Southern California. Well, as Providence would have it, he lost his job the day that my mother had her stroke, that eventually, that was her demise. And he decided to take advantage of the fact that, this is the time. He'd already developed his product. Now he's got to market it and get it going. And so he came to live up here. And then, the whole thing happened with my mom. And then this virus happens. And the way I see it is that the Lord provided for Jeff and I to have this family member be up here with us while he's trying to fulfill his dream. And we're company for him also. In the meantime, so it's kind of taken the sting off. But like Mary said, it's given me more opportunity to appreciate relationships, the physical touch. We're very huggy with our, kids and all that, and not being able to do that with my granddaughter. I haven't held her since my mom's funeral. And although we FaceTime, it's not the same.
Right.
But it has made my relationship with Christ stronger. My prayer time is more intense. And because I feel very blessed that I have a loving husband and my son that are here, but not everybody has that. So there are people in my sphere of influence that I've been reaching out to, young widows, people that have marital problems, that are now caged in a house with a difficult spouse or difficult life situation and stuff. So I reach out to them to, hang in there. This is for strength, and the Lord will protect you, but keep your eyes fixed on him. I think my relationship has grown stronger in the Lord, and but I long for human touch, and being away from, like, our brother Victor had a birthday yesterday, and it was sad not being a part of that parade, because I couldn't be down there. But I was so blessed that my family reached out and did this little drive-by to celebrate his birthday, because he's a special needs guy, and here they sent me videos. They include me, and they sent me videos to show me, so I was included in that. But it was sad not being able to be there, to that whole thing. So, but I'm grateful to God because he's in control. And, we talked about my mom and raising us very religious. And one of the saddest things that happened to my mom was that all of her daughters left the Catholic Church, but became
Born again Christians.
Born again Christians. We're evangelical Christians. And at the end of my mom's life, we had, the last years of her life, we had just a really intimate time with her. Really enjoyed. She fell in love with the scriptures. She loved hearing from us about the Lord and our relationship. And she was so proud of all her girls, and so we all have sweet memories of this time. And then this virus hits, and I'm just grateful that my mother died before the virus hit, and we could celebrate her life and all the wonderful things you heard about her. We got to celebrate her life, So.
Desiree, how much time do you have left?
We're just going to keep going.
Okay.
I think there's 5 minutes on the clock, but we'll just keep going. It hasn't notified me yet. So.
Okay. I also, like my sisters, I miss being able to hold and cuddle with my grandchildren. They all live pretty local. So we get together regularly. Two of my daughters and their families attend our church. And so I really miss that. I have 11 grandchildren and a 12th on the way, and then also a little foster girl baby. But we have a very close-knit family, and so we really do miss that. Zoom and Marco Polo have been helpful, but all the grandkids are telling me they can't wait till this is over because they want to have a big Grand Bunny, I call them my Grand Bunnies, Grand Bunny sleepover at Nana's house. So I'm looking forward to that. It has made me also more appreciative of my church. I really miss my brothers and sisters in Christ at my church family, and that personal touch. But because my husband and I work, do a lot of ministry for the church. Of course, he's the pastor of the church. I am busier now than before because I have to do counseling via email or letters or text or whatever. Not have to, I get to, because I love to be in touch with my people. But I'm doing more proofing work for him because he's putting blogs on the internet. I have to, proof everything that he puts up. We're pre-recording our services and doing webcasts, not live streaming. So I've been staying pretty busy. So for me, the time since our mother died, which is shortly after she died, is when this whole thing hit.
Right.
What timing also, for our mother's death.
Mhm.
But for me, it's just been busy, busy, busy. And the time is going fast, and I'm thankful for that.
Nora.
Oh gosh.
Wake up.
What was the question again?
Wake up.
How has it affected me? Well,
Yeah.
I really think it's affected me in a quite positive way. I have my relationship, my reading of the Word has become more intense for me. Francis, you see, it finally happened, and I
By the way, we call the Word that's the Bible. I don't know if you know that.
I just can't. I get up. I can't wait to wake up in the morning, and I get up by myself, and I'm doing my reading, my quiet time, and praying, and I too I'm blessed. I'm blessed and not blessed. My grandchildren live with me, so I don't know.
Blessed and not blessed.
Might be not a blessing. Okay, but the littlest ones do. My daughter and her 5 children, they live with me. My oldest, everybody lives here. All my 3 children are back here at home, and so I get to have my grandkids. So I kind of feel guilty. I see my sisters and talk with them, and I get to hug my grandbabies. Not all of them, because I have one that lives in Tennessee and one that lives out here in Thousand Oaks. But the rest, they're here with me, and so I get to hold them and hug them, and I'm so grateful to the Lord that we have all remained. We have our health. And that we're all under. I am grateful that we're under one roof because I could keep an eye on them, but I so miss my my family, my brothers and my sisters. I really do, and I'm so glad that we do have this Marco Polo and that we text each other all the time. But I miss the camaraderie, the little get-togethers, and
big get-togethers.
I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Nothing little about our family.
No.
Yeah, I cannot wait till we're able to be under one roof again. I can't wait for that to happen. But I mean, I love, my God, my Lord and Savior, and He is pulling us through this, and we're gonna get over this, if I didn't have my God, I don't know where I would be. But I'm grateful that I do have a church that has our sermons, our church services online, and so we attend the 2 days, and we do our home fellowship through that too, and I'm glad for that, and I feel joy.
4 sisters, including myself, and 1 brother attend our church. So, yeah.
So,
What about you, Clarisa? Yeah.
How it's affected me, I can reiterate, everybody's sentiments here. it's the human contact thing that we're missing. But for the most part, I'm kind of a homebody. And I think I've been quite comfortable staying at home. It's not been a big problem for me.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, same here.
But I think that this is kind of like a little, well, a tribute to Mom, really, because mom trained us and taught us all to be very resourceful and good homemakers, and I have not run out of projects to do.
Oh, yeah.
I have, I mean, just
Me
doing
neither.
a plethora
Me
of
neither.
things around the house. I didn't know how to sew, but I learned how to use the sewing machine because my mom was a seamstress, so I sort of inherited her sewing machine. And but I mean, I have not run out of projects to do. I have definitely been my prayer time has been, because I have a lot of time, to be in prayer, has been more purposeful. So I'm not just, it's been more purposeful, like Liz was saying, you can reach out specifically to certain people who that they're stuck in their homes with maybe a spouse who's, giving them some trouble or whatever. So I've been trying to do that. I've been trying to reach out to people that I kind of maybe put on the back burner, because for so many years I was taking care of my mom. I kind of fell out of real close communication with a lot of people. And I've been rekindling old friendships, some older people in our church, some of the older people that, that they don't have somebody. So I'm sending cards out, and I've had so much fun doing that. Like I have, all the papyrus cards. Everybody's getting papyrus cards right now. So, and I'm writing, old fashioned long letters but I do miss my siblings. I really appreciate the technology, the Marco Polos and the text. And we have a group family text, and all of us are on this text thread.
It's hysterical. It's hysterical.
Yeah, we're cracking each other up all day, especially right now with all these
Memes.
COVID
Memes, the
and
memes.
the quarantine
Oh my
memes
God,
and the
they're
funny
hilarious.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get together and talk on the Marco Polo now, which is a lot of fun too. That's funny.
Yeah.
But it's made me appreciate the physical contact with people, because I'm also not a very physical person. I'm not like a real, huggy and touchy person, but with my children I am, and with my siblings I am. And so it's kind of like when a friend comes up and gives you a hug, I've always kind of taken that for granted because I'm not a big huggy person. I'm kind of like, okay, hi, I'm just that's a weird thing to me. What I wouldn't give to have a friend come and give me a big old fashioned hug right now.
Oh, yeah.
But I think all things it has affected me in a positive way. I don't have any.
Same
I
here.
mean, I get a little bit bored sometimes, so I play with a puzzle.
I wish I had your time.
I don't have much. Like I said, I've been finding so many things to keep busy, things that needed attention.
So before I let you guys go, can you just a little bit talk about how your time growing up in Simí Valley has sort of impacted your life? How, if there's any, lessons or things that you learned during your time as a part of that community as a child that sort of, have stayed with you?
Well, for me, just what you heard right now with my sisters talking about, we go to the same church. I used to go to that church too before we moved up here. That growing up the way we did, the way my parents, you just got along with your siblings. It's the way it was. We are so tight. And we still have that country heart, even the ones that weren't raised on the ranch, like we talked about, because a couple of the kids have very few memories of the ranch, but it was that mentality that my mom and dad raised us with, that we're one. It's family. Everybody works. And you're not going to find another family that, I think we're gone.
No,
You're still there. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're still there.
There's 13 people in my family, and we're the best of friends. You know, doesn't mean that we don't have our differences. You know, we have big differences, especially those of us that we're not Catholic anymore. So, but as far as brothers and sisters, the camaraderie that we share started in the ranch.
Mhm.
And our stories go back to the ranch, and they go back to mom and dad and their value system that they imparted on us. And to me, Simí Valley is Lemos family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's beautiful.
I feel a lot of times when I'm in Simi Valley shopping and people treat me rude, I want to tell them, hey, this is my town. This is the town I used to live in. It's on.
This is my town.
Yeah, but so sometimes I'll make a little mention. Yeah, I was born and raised here. Because I'm proud of our little Simi Valley. I think that the value that what I've taken out of being raised in Simi Valley was just a simple country life, and a very, because of my parents, just a real well-rounded exposure to not just the Hispanic culture, but to the American culture.
American culture.
Yeah, it just so many good memories, and that the way they raised us helped us to be what we are today. The Lord really used our parents in that way.
And just to let you know, they were not perfect. We had we had struggles. We had sibling rivalry. We had I didn't get along with my parents for a stage of my life. So we're not trying to paint an unrealistic picture that everything was, coming up roses because we had these good parents. We had a hard life, but the hard life produced this fruit that we have today as a family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Growing up in Simí, for like in my era anyway, kind of reminds me the movie like Sandlot, bicycles, baseball games, block parties, things like that, where there was just a lot of community. That was my Simí Valley, and to this day, I can go, if I go to the grocery store or anywhere in public, hey, are you a Lemos?
I get that a lot.
Do you have a sister named Mary? It's constant. It's like, I even have my Lemos shirt on today. It's just funny. So when I wear this in public, and I'm like, oh yeah, you read my shirt. No, but you look just like so and so. Do you have a sister named blah blah blah? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And
we get that a lot.
They recognize you everywhere. So it's that community, that whole community sort of feeling is what Simí is to me.
Awesome. Mary, did you want to add anything?
Yes. And I ditto everything everybody has said. And also, I just remember right now, as I'm coming over from like LA and the San Fernando Valley, and you're coming into on the Simí Freeway, and you're coming into Simí Valley, and I always get this warm feeling.
Yes.
Even though I don't live in Simí Valley.
I'm
It's
home.
like,
I'm home.
This is beautiful. And it goes, this is Simí Valley, and I just love it. I love the mountains there. I remember what my dad used to tell me stories about the Indians that used to live in the mountains, and you're coming down, they're very rocky, like by where Rocky Peak is and all that. Yeah. And I just love it. I'm I'm home, coming from wherever. And that scene is so beautiful, so beautiful. And even though the valley has grown so much, it's still home. But yes, growing up in the ranch, and our parents, they developed this resourcefulness in us. We could make, even when I found out we were going to be isolated, and I go, well, let's just do it. I mean, I had no choice really, but there's so many things to do. There are so many things in the house that need to be done, and that's the way they raised us. Don't waste your time. You have, life has given you lemons, so make lemonade type of thing, and
use your imagination.
Leisure
Bag
imagination.
margaritas.
And yes, that's how we're. And, anyway, so Simi Valley, I love it. It was always beautiful, and it to me, you know, it's even though it's changed, it's home.
It's still home. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, sometimes I like to just take a very slow drive up and down the streets of Old Simí, because my Erringer Road is gone. It's there, but it's gone.
Yeah.
And I just like to drive and just remember walking through those little streets, or going from after church there on Pacific Avenue. Is that what the church is?
Yeah.
To Ashland Avenue to visit my grandmother or my aunt on a Sunday afternoon. And it just, flood of memories. So many good memories too.
Yeah.
One time my husband and I were walking through the little streets there, and we ran into some guy who was out in his front yard, some Hispanic guy. And I mentioned to him my dad's name, and he goes, "Get out of here." And he takes off his glove and he says, "Let me shake your hand. You're Benny Lemos' daughter." And I was like, wow, that's really cool, you know?
Yeah.
You feel like royalty a little bit, huh?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
recognize you everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm famous.
yeah.
Only in Simí though.
We're only in Simí.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, you guys.
Hmm.
This has been a
Thank
total
you.
joy to listen to your stories.
Oh,
Thank you.
hey.
Well,
Yay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Désirée. And if you ever want to do this again, just let us know.
Let us know.